For a deeper look into the economics of soccer, let's bring in Mike Bako. He's the sports editor of thedailynational.com. Mike, welcome back to the show. Lots of sports wrapping up in recent days, lots more coming up next week. Take us through some of the big ones and the economic impacts that they've had.
Yeah, sure. So certainly what you're looking at, the Euro Cup, then the Copa America, and now we have CONCACAF. So that's basically the North American teams, the national teams, the Central American teams, and the Caribbean teams. And really the powerhouse that comes out of that year in and year out that everyone is gunning for is the Mexican team. Certainly in recent years, teams like Costa Rica, Honduras, America is always in the mix. But they're always somewhat of the up-and-coming younger brother to the Mexican team, and certainly to the Costa Rican team that in recent years has really made some great strides as a nation and with their younger development system. And that's one of the things that the U.S. has not necessarily been able to advance in the way that they have wanted to. We don't have that next generation of younger U.S. players that have been able to take our national team to glory. Certainly missing the last World Cup is indicative of that.
July is a big month for the UK in terms of sports. We saw Wimbledon wrapping up, the British Open coming up, of course, the game that we just saw over the weekend. What sort of impact is that having on the British economy at a time that COVID has led to some sluggishness?
Yeah, it certainly led to some sluggishness, but you saw the crowd there at Wembley in full force. So that obviously has a great impact. Wimbledon, and then with the British Open. Now, here's where reality sets in. One of the previous champions, Johnson, was coming over to play in the tournament, and he tested positive. So he is now out of the tournament. That's where the ugly head of reality comes in. Yes, we were able to have a jam-packed Wembley Stadium. Yes, we were able to have the Euro Cup come to fruition with a great, amazing game. And if you watch the telecast, you see all of these squares in Italy, or you see some of these outdoor venues all across England where all of these fans were watching. But then you have that one positive test for a famous golfer, a championship golfer, and all of a sudden reality comes back into play. So for now, things have been going well. A great Wimbledon tournament, a great soccer tournament, and they're certainly hoping for a great golf tournament. Again, all trying to stimulate the economy and really put out the sign that they are open for business, that they are ready for more of these events and trying to get back to normalcy as we move through the summer and certainly into the fall sports.
So this rowdiness that we saw in England, I'm sure you've seen it before, but how much of this was just typical hooliganism and how much of it is tied up perhaps to COVID frustrations, lockdowns, and the sort?
Unfortunately, it is soccer hooliganism, it's soccer nationalism. This always rears its ugly head as recently as this recent tournament in Europe. Some of the teams and some of the games had to be stopped for racist chants. These go on, unfortunately, relatively unchecked. Yes, there are some teams and some games that stop the game. They make an announcement. There have actually been fines for some of the club teams in terms of what their fans have been saying. This is something that really needs to stop. The players want it to stop, and it is a few bad apples. This is systemic, but it's a vocal minority that is really bringing this to the forefront. But it has not stopped. They've really not put any measures in it to stop, and certainly after England loses, the three players that are the most targeted, the fans don't really take into account that they probably wouldn't have been in the final without those players.
There is a lot of money around sports, not just the sponsorships, and not just the big commercial products, but also just the small-time vendors, the ones selling snacks, the restaurants near the stadiums, the ones selling T-shirts. How much of those are obviously they suffered during COVID? How much of them are going to really be able to make a comeback, to bring commerce back to sports as it once was?
That really is going to be the question across all sports. Will those local bars where people congregate before going into the game, how many of those are even still there? You're talking about some arenas and some stadiums that are still not at full capacity right now. So those are really the ones that have been struggling. You think about some of the vendors, some of the teams put those people on furlough. How many did they actually bring back? Those are the stories that aren't in the headlines as much as, oh, it's great, the NBA Finals are going on. The NHL Stanley Cup Finals took place and came to a conclusion with the Tampa Bay Lightning winning again. But some of those smaller stories don't get the headlines, and the smaller stories are the things that are going to affect the livelihood of a lot of these people, but certainly the enjoyment of the fans. If you have a certain tradition built in of going to a certain sports bar before a game, meeting your friends. If that sports bar is not there because they haven't been able to be in operation for a year, it's going to change the fabric and the dynamic of a lot of fans going to stadiums. Right now, we have not seen a diminution of fans going to the games in terms of they've been gone for a year and a half. Have they found something else to do? That hasn't really been the case. But has that tradition been lost? 1 year of not being able to go to games, people have been able to find other things to do. Right now, we're not seeing it in full force, but I think there could be effect for years to come.
Mike Bako from dailynational.com, thank you.